Om Tat Ganeshaya Vidmahi Vakratundaya Dhimahi Tanno Dantihi Prachodayate Om Tat Paramparyaya Vidmahi Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guruhu Prachodayate Om Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Yogena cittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakkarotam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. Om Matah Sadhana Padaha svaviṣaya-asaṁprayoge cittasya svarūpānukāra-iv-endriyāṇāṁ pratyāhāraḥ. Pratyahara is conscious withdrawal from the sensory world by detaching the cognizing mind from objects of the senses. The last two sutra of this pada, a pada dealing with techniques and practices, are about pratyahara. Pratyahara is the disassociation, asaṁprayoga, between the cognizing mind and the objects of the senses. Usually the mind pushes the senses outwardly to search for ahara, or food. In this search for food, as well as the skill in avoiding becoming food for other stronger bodies, the senses are the scouts, the sentries of the creature's existence. Pratyahara is a disjunction of the mind from the senses. It is as though the commander of the fort suddenly shuts down communication links with the scouts he has sent out into the territory. The mind or commander is restrained. He can now start to go inwards to fortify the inner resources. The mind is known as the single or supersense ekendriya. The mind is the energy source for the entire sensory apparatus. If there is no mind, there is no sense. One knows that when one is knocked unconscious, there is no sensation. Even in language, one uses the term nonsense when people do things mindlessly. Indriyāṇāṁ refers to the senses. In the West, people talk about 5 senses, but in Indian thought, there are at least 10 senses, 5 jnanendriya and 5 karmendriya, or even 18 as described by Swamiji. The karmendriya are the sense of doing something, the action sense. These 5 include the sense of locomotion carried out by the feet, pada, the sense of dexterity achieved through the hands, pani, the sense of excretion through the excretory system, payu, the sense of reproduction, upasta, through the reproductive system, and the sense of communication, vak. Many contend that pratyahara should be categorized in the external aspects of Ashtanga Yoga because it belongs to sadhana pada. However, pratyahara is definitely an internal process because most believe that sensory control exists outside. They mortify their bodies to kill their senses and think they're practicing pratyahara. Pratyahara is a process of the internal mind, not of the external senses. Without consciousness, there is no sense of sensation. Pratyahara also implies purification of the senses, making them the best they can be before achieving control over them. All senses must be heightened, purified, and perfected to the best level possible. Then, at the height of their perfection, the plug must be pulled. It is not about destroying the equipment, but about unplugging it from the energy source at the exact right moment, like pulling the plug from the electrical socket when light is no longer required. The best of computers cannot run without an energy source. The same applies to the sensory apparatus, which is better than any supercomputer. Pratyahara implies that the mind becomes the commander of the senses and not the servant. Another vivid image regarding pratyāhāraḥ is of the tortoise withdrawing its limbs inside the shell. In the same way, one must withdraw mind, the energizing source, by moving from the outside to the inside of our being. What is the bridge of passage from the outer to the inner world? The previous sutra already gives the answer, pranayama. With pratyāhāraḥ, a further step is taken inwards and outwards and onwards in the journey towards kaivalya. Consciousness becomes the king, not the slave, of the courtiers, the senses. Om loka samasta sukhino bhavantu sarve janaha sukhino bhavantu. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om.